The message came from the stars on a quiet Tuesday morning. Every radio telescope on Earth picked it up at the same time. It was not random noise. It was not a mistake. It was an invitation. The Galactic Union had watched humanity for a long time. They saw the first fires. They saw the first cities. They saw the rockets leaving the atmosphere and the satellites filling the sky. For 3,000 cycles, the Union had existed in peace. 12 species from 12 different worlds had learned to live together without war. Now they were ready to welcome a 13th. Hannah Lee read the translated message for the 100th time. She sat in her small office at the United Nations building, her coffee growing cold on her desk. The words were simple. The meaning was enormous. We invite the species known as humans to attend a peace meeting at the neutral station called Harmony Prime. We wish to discuss your membership in the Galactic Union. Hannah was 42 years old. She had spent 20 years as a diplomat, solving problems between nations that refused to talk to each other. She had ended 3 civil wars through careful words and patient listening. When the world leaders met to choose who would speak for all of humanity, her name came up again and again. She did not want the job. She took it anyway. Captain T. Kang would fly the ship. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and calm eyes. He had been a pilot for 15 years and a soldier for 5 years before that. He did not smile often, but when he did, people trusted him completely. The military wanted someone who could protect the delegation. They chose T because he was the best at staying calm when everything went wrong. Dr. Yuri Park completed the team. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied life forms that might exist beyond Earth. For most of her career, this had been theory. Now it was real. Yuri was small and quick, with short hair and glasses that she constantly pushed up her nose. She talked fast when she was excited, and she had been excited for 3 weeks straight. The ship they would take was called the UNS Horizon. It was humanity's first true starship, built in secret over 10 years using technology that the public did not know existed. It was not elegant. It was not pretty. It was a block of metal and engines designed to keep 3 people alive in the emptiness of space. But it worked, and that was enough. On the day of departure, Hannah stood at the airlock and looked back at Earth. The planet hung in the darkness like a blue marble wrapped in white clouds. She had seen photographs of it from space many times. Seeing it with her own eyes was different. It looked fragile. It looked precious. It looked like something worth protecting. "Ambassador," T said from behind her, "we need to go." Hannah nodded and stepped into the ship. The airlock closed behind her with a soft hiss. There was no ceremony. There was no crowd. 3 humans walked into a metal box and flew toward the unknown. The journey took 11 days. The Horizon used a technology that the aliens had sent instructions for, a way of folding space that made long distances short. Yuri spent most of the trip reading everything humanity had ever guessed about alien life. Most of it was wrong. T spent his time checking systems and running simulations. Hannah spent her time thinking about what she would say. What do you say to creatures who have never seen a human before? How do you explain a species that had spent most of its history fighting itself? Hannah wrote speeches and threw them away. She wrote more speeches and threw those away too. In the end, she decided to speak from the heart and hope for the best. On the 11th day, the Horizon dropped out of folded space near Harmony Prime. The station was enormous. It hung in the void like a silver flower, its petals spreading outward in all directions. Lights blinked along its surface. Ships of every shape and size drifted around it like fish around a reef. "It is beautiful," Yuri whispered. T said nothing. He was focused on the controls, guiding the Horizon toward the docking area. The instructions from the station were clear, but T had his own ideas. The designated approach path was long and slow, designed for ships that moved carefully. T did not like moving carefully. He liked efficiency. "Captain," Hannah said, watching the station grow larger in the window. "The approach path curves around the station's eastern section." "I see a faster route," T replied. "Is it safe?" T considered the question for exactly 2 seconds. Safe enough. The horizon accelerated. It shot past the slow-moving alien vessels like a stone skipping across water. T's hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. He had done harder things than this. He had landed ships in sandstorms and launched from moving platforms. A simple approach to a space station was nothing. Inside Harmony Prime, alarms began to sound. The council chamber was filled with representatives from all 12 species. The Veli were there, their thin insect bodies trembling with anticipation. The Nor floated in special tanks, their fish-like forms pressing against the glass. The Torm stood like statues, their crystalline bodies catching the light. 9 other species filled the remaining seats, each one stranger than the last. High Counselor Rem stood at the center of the chamber. Rem was a Torm, ancient and wise, with cracks running through their crystal form like rivers through stone. They had led the council for 200 cycles. They had seen many species join the Union. They had never seen anything like what happened next. The human ship has exited folded space, an aide announced. Rem nodded. Good, direct them to the standard approach. Counselor, they are not following the standard approach. Rem turned. On the display screen, a small angular ship was moving through the traffic lanes at impossible speed. It dodged between vessels that had been carefully positioned for safety. It dove under structures that were meant to be avoided. It flew like nothing the council had ever seen. What are they doing? The Veli representative asked, their voice high with fear. I do not know, Rem admitted. The human ship came closer, and closer, and closer still. It was heading directly for the station at a speed that would surely cause destruction. The Veli representative fainted, their thin body collapsing to the floor. The Nor ambassador pressed against the back of their tank, trying to get as far from the window as possible. Even the Torm showed cracks of stress spreading across their forms. Then, at the last possible moment, the human ship stopped. It turned gracefully and settled into the docking port with perfect precision. The maneuver had been flawless. The maneuver had been terrifying. Inside the horizon, T allowed himself a small smile. See, safe enough. Hana stared at him. T, what was that? Efficient flying. You nearly gave me a heart attack. T shrugged. We arrived on time. Yuri looked out the window at the station. She could see movement behind the transparent walls. Creatures were running. Some were being carried away on stretchers. Others were simply standing frozen in place. I think, Yuri said slowly, that we may have made an impression. Hana closed her eyes and took a deep breath. This was not how she had imagined first contact. She had imagined careful words and gentle introductions. She had imagined building trust slowly, step by step. Instead, her pilot had nearly crashed into a space station and apparently caused mass panic. Well, Hana said, standing up and straightening her uniform, we should probably go apologize. The airlock opened. The 3 humans stepped out into history. They did not know that the galaxy would never be the same. They did not know that their arrival had just changed everything. They only knew that they had a job to do, and they intended to do it well. Behind them, the horizon sat quietly in its dock, its engines cooling. Ahead of them, 1,000 alien eyes watched from the shadows. The peace meeting was about to begin. And the humans had no idea what they had just started. The hallway outside the docking port was empty. This surprised Hana. She had expected a welcome party. She had expected officials and translators and perhaps a small ceremony. Instead, there was only silence and the soft hum of the station systems. Where is everyone? Yuri asked, looking around. T's eyes moved across the corridor. His training told him to watch for threats. His instincts told him something was wrong. Stay close, he said quietly. They walked forward. The corridor curved gently, following the shape of the station. Doors lined both walls, each one sealed tight. Through small windows, Hana could see movement. Faces appeared and disappeared. Eyes watched from the shadows, but no one came out to greet them. After a few minutes, they reached a larger space. It was some kind of reception area, with seats arranged in circles and plants growing in transparent containers. Dozens of aliens were present, but they were all pressed against the walls. They were all staring. Hana stopped walking. She raised her hand in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "Hello," she said clearly. "We come in peace. We are honored to be here." No one responded. A small creature that looked like a bundle of feathers made a sound like a whistle and hid behind a larger companion. A being made of what appeared to be living stone took 3 steps backward and bumped into the wall. "They seem afraid," Yuri observed. "Afraid of what?" T asked. Yuri did not answer. She was watching the aliens carefully, noting their body language. She had studied animal behavior for years. Fear looked the same in many species. Wide eyes, tense muscles, the urge to flee. Every alien in the room showed these signs. A door opened at the far end of the reception area. A single figure emerged. It was a Torm, tall and crystalline, with a voice that rang like bells. "Welcome to Harmony Prime," the Torm said. "I am Counselor Rem. Please follow me. The council is waiting." Hana nodded gratefully. "Thank you, Counselor. We apologize for any confusion our arrival may have caused." Rem paused. The cracks in their crystal body seemed to deepen. Confusion, yes, that is one word for it. They followed Rem through the station. The corridors were wider now, built for beings of many sizes. Some passages had water running through them for the aquatic species. Others had branches and platforms for those who preferred to climb. The station was a marvel of design, built to accommodate everyone. And yet, everywhere the humans walked, the other species fled. Doors closed as they approached. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. A group of Veli scattered like leaves in the wind, their thin legs carrying them away at surprising speed. The Nor and their mobile tanks moved to the sides of the corridors, giving the humans as much space as possible. T noticed that he was walking slightly ahead of the others. He was not doing it on purpose. It was simply habit. When entering unknown territory, you led with your strongest member. You protected the ones behind you. He did not realize that this simple act looked like something very different to the aliens watching. To them, it looked like a predator leading its pack on a hunt. The council chamber was a great domed room at the heart of the station. Seats rose in tiers around a central platform, each section designed for a different species. The 12 representatives were already present, watching as the humans entered. Hana walked to the center of the platform. She had practiced this moment in her mind 1,000 times. She would smile warmly. She would speak clearly. She would show them that humans were friendly and kind. She smiled. The Veli representative screamed. Hana froze, her smile fading. I'm sorry, did I do something wrong?" Rem stepped forward quickly. "Ambassador Lee, please, your expression, the showing of teeth. Among all species in the Galactic Union, this is a threat display. It means you wish to attack." Hana's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh no, no, I was smiling. Humans smile when they are happy. It means we are friendly." "You show your teeth when you are friendly." The Nor ambassador's voice came through a translator, high and disbelieving. "Yes, we show our teeth when we are happy, when we laugh, when we greet friends." Hana turned to her companions. Yuri stopped smiling. "I was not smiling," T said. "Good, keep not smiling." The council members exchanged looks. Information was shared through glances and small gestures. The Veli representative was helped back to their seat, still trembling. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Hana tried again. She stepped toward the nearest delegate, a Nor floating in a portable tank, and extended her hand. "Let me try something else. On Earth, we greet each other by shaking hands. It is a gesture of trust and friendship." The Nor recoiled so violently that water splashed over the edge of the tank. "Ambassador, Rem said carefully. The grasping of another being's appendage is universally associated with attack and restraint. No peaceful species makes physical contact in greeting. Hana pulled her hand back. Her cheeks were red. I see. I apologize. I did not know. She looked around the chamber. Every eye was fixed on her. Every body was tense. These beings had invited humanity to join their union, and now they looked like they wanted to run away. The meeting had barely begun, and it was already a disaster. Perhaps, Hana said slowly, we should start over. My name is Hana Lee. These are my colleagues, Captain T. Kang and Dr. Yuri Park. We represent Earth. We are very grateful for this invitation and we want to learn. Please, teach us how to behave properly. The honesty in her voice seemed to calm the room slightly. Rem nodded and gestured toward the seats. Please sit. We have much to discuss. The humans moved toward the indicated seats. As T sat down, the chair creaked under his weight. Several delegates flinched. Yuri took out a small notebook and began writing, and the scratch of her pen made the Veli representative's antenna twitch nervously. For the next hour, the council tried to conduct normal business. They explained the structure of the Galactic Union. They described the peace that had lasted for 3,000 cycles. They talked about trade and cooperation and the sharing of knowledge. But every few minutes, something would happen. T would shift in his seat, and the nearby delegates would tense. Yuri would push her glasses up her nose, and someone would gasp at the speed of her hand movement. Hana would nod to show she understood, and her head motion would make the Veli look away in fear. Finally, during a break in the proceedings, Yuri approached a young Nor who had been assigned to assist the delegation. The Nor's name was Kel, and they seemed less afraid than the others, or perhaps just more curious. Kel, Yuri said gently, making sure not to smile, can you help me understand something? Why is everyone so frightened of us? Kel's large eyes blinked slowly. You do not know. We truly do not. Kel was quiet for a moment. Then they spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. You move too fast. Your eyes track movement like hunters. Your bodies are dense and heavy and strong. When you breathe, I can hear it across the room. When you walk, the floor shakes. When you entered the station, your ship moved in ways that should not be possible. You are. We are what? You are terrifying, Kel said simply. You are the most terrifying beings we have ever seen. Yuri stared at the young Nor. She thought about herself, about Hana, about T. They were ordinary people. They were diplomats and scientists and soldiers. They were nothing special by Earth standards. But here, in this place, among beings who had known only peace for 3,000 years, they were monsters from a nightmare. I see, Yuri said softly. Thank you for telling me, Kel. That helps me understand. She walked back to her colleagues and told them what she had learned. Hana listened with growing horror. T listened with his usual calm. When Yuri finished, they all sat in silence for a long moment. So everything we do scares them, Hana said. It appears so, Yuri confirmed. Then what do we do? T spoke for the first time in hours. His voice was low and steady. We do what we came here to do. We show them who we really are, not what we look like, not how we move, who we are inside. Hana looked at her captain. She had never heard him speak so many words at once. She realized that beneath his soldier's exterior, there was wisdom she had not seen before. You're right, she said. We cannot change what we are, but we can show them what we choose to be. The break ended. The meeting resumed, and the humans sat quietly in their seats, trying very hard not to terrify anyone else. They did not succeed, but they kept trying anyway. That night, while the humans slept in their guest quarters, the Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. Rem stood at the center of the chamber, their crystalline form casting rainbow shadows across the walls. Around them, the 11 other representatives sat in various states of distress. We need to discuss the humans, Rem said. Discuss them, we need to send them away. The Veli representative's voice was shrill. They are dangerous. Did you see how they move? Did you see how the tall one watches everything? He looked at me like I was food. They cannot be food, the Nor ambassador said reasonably. We have no nutritional value to oxygen-breathing species. That is not the point. Rem raised a hand for silence. The chamber grew quiet. We invited them here. We cannot simply send them away without cause. What would that say about the Galactic Union? That we abandon diplomacy at the first sign of discomfort? This is not discomfort, a Torm elder said. This is survival instinct. My cracks deepened 3 times today just from being in the same room as them. My body knows something my mind does not want to accept. These humans are predators. Rem nodded slowly. Then let us learn more. Knowledge is better than fear. What do we know about their homeworld? An aide brought up the data on the central display. The information had been gathered from human broadcasts over the past century, combined with sensor readings from the horizon. As the details appeared, the council fell into stunned silence. Their planet is designated Class 12 on the habitability scale, the aide reported. For reference, the highest rating for any Union homeworld is Class 3. Class 12. The Veli representative's antenna went flat against their head. That is a death world. That is worse than a death world. Nothing should survive there. The data continued to scroll. Earth's gravity was nearly twice the Union average. Its atmosphere contained 21% oxygen, a gas so reactive that most species considered it poisonous. The planet experienced extreme temperature swings, violent weather events, and geological instability. Earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, floods. How do they survive? Someone asked. They adapt, the aide said. Their bodies are remarkably resilient. They heal from wounds that would kill other species. They can survive for days without food, weeks without shelter, and they can function in temperature ranges that span 40 degrees. This is impossible. There is more. The aide hesitated. Their evolutionary history shows that humans developed as persistent predators. The room went very still. Explain, Rem said. Their ancestors hunted by chasing prey over long distances, not by speed but by endurance. They would follow an animal for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. The humans could keep going when their prey could not. No one spoke. In the Galactic Union, hunting was something that happened in nature among primitive creatures. No civilized species hunted. No civilized species had ever needed to. But humans had evolved as hunters. Their bodies were designed for pursuit. Their minds were shaped by the chase. They are death world predators, the Veli representative said faintly, and we invited them to dinner. Meanwhile, in the guest quarters, morning had come for the humans. The station ran on a 26-hour cycle, which did not match Earth's rhythm at all. Hana had slept poorly, her mind racing with thoughts of how badly the first day had gone. Yuri was already awake, reading through the information packets the council had provided. Did you know that the Veli consider standing still for more than 10 seconds to be a sign of illness? She said. And the Nor think that looking directly at someone is extremely rude. So everything we do is wrong, Hana said, rubbing her eyes. Not wrong, just different. Very, very different. T entered from the small exercise room. He had been doing his morning routine, push-ups, sit-ups, stretching. Nothing intense by his standards. When he sat down at the table, Yuri looked at him thoughtfully. How many push-ups did you do? She asked. 200. Why? The Union average for physical exertion before exhaustion is about 12 repetitive movements. T stared at her. 12. 12. We are dealing with species that have never needed to develop endurance. Their worlds were gentle. Their evolution was gentle. They have no concept of pushing through pain or fatigue. When they are tired, they stop. When they are hurt, they rest. The idea of continuing past exhaustion is completely alien to them. A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Hana opened it to find Kel waiting outside, floating in a smaller version of the Nor's mobile tanks. "Ambassador Lee," Kel said, "the Council has requested a meeting with Dr. Park. They wish to learn more about human biology." Yuri stood up eagerly. "I would be happy to share. Perhaps we can learn about each other." The medical bay was a wonder of alien technology. Machines hummed and beeped in ways that Yuri did not understand. The Veli medical officer, whose name was Chin, watched her with obvious nervousness. Chin's thin body trembled constantly, their compound eyes never quite focusing on Yuri directly. "Thank you for meeting with me," Yuri said, remembering not to smile. "I am very interested in learning about the physiology of Union species." "And we are interested in learning about humans," Chin replied. "Though I admit some of what we have learned is troubling." "Troubling how?" Chin pressed a button and a display appeared showing human anatomy. "Your skeletal structure, it is remarkably dense. Your bones are reinforced in ways we have never seen. And your muscles, the ratio of muscle to body mass is extraordinary." "Humans evolved on a high-gravity world," Yuri explained. "We needed strong bodies just to walk around." "But it is not just strength, it is everything." Chin's voice dropped to a whisper. "Your healing factor, your resistance to toxins, your ability to survive blood loss. Ambassador, we ran the numbers. A human can lose nearly half their blood volume and still survive. For any other species, losing 10% is fatal." Yuri nodded. She had never thought of these things as remarkable. They were simply part of being human. "We are survivors," she said. "Our history taught us to be." "Your history?" Chin's antenna twitched. "Yes, we have learned about that as well, your wars." "We counted them, or we tried to count them. There were too many. Thousands of conflicts, millions of deaths. Your species has been at war with itself for most of its existence. How is this possible? How did you not destroy yourselves?" Yuri was quiet for a moment. This was a question she had asked herself many times. "We came close," she admitted. "Several times, but we always found a way back from the edge. We learned, we grew, we are still learning." A sound from outside made them both turn. Through the window, they could see T walking through the corridor with Kel beside him. The young Nor had asked to hear stories about Earth, and T, surprisingly, had agreed. Chin watched them pass. "The tall one, the soldier, he frightens me the most." "T, he is actually very kind. He moves like nothing I have ever seen. His eyes see everything. When he entered this section, I felt my heart's beat faster. My body recognized a threat even before my mind understood." Yuri watched T's reflection in the window. He walked with an easy grace, his weight balanced, his hands relaxed at his sides. To her, he looked normal. To Chin, he apparently looked like a nightmare. "On Earth," Yuri said carefully, "we have many dangerous animals, predators that could kill a human in seconds, but we survive because we are smarter, more adaptable, and more stubborn than any of them. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We find a way." "That is what frightens me," Chin said. "A species that does not know when to stop. A species that fights even when fighting seems hopeless. A species that runs toward danger instead of away from it. What happens when such a species turns its attention to the stars?" Yuri did not have an answer. That evening, the council received another shock. Hana had requested permission to share a meal with the delegates, hoping to build trust through food. It had seemed like a good idea. She sat at a long table with representatives from 6 species. Her packed meal from Earth sat before her: rice, spiced vegetables, and thin slices of cooked beef. She began to eat with metal utensils, chopsticks that flashed in the light. The Torm delegate watched her bring food to her mouth. "What is that?" they asked. "Rice and beef," Hana said. "Traditional food from my region on Earth." "The brown substance, what is it made from?" "Beef is meat from a cow. A cow is an animal on our planet. Silence fell across the table. You eat other creatures. The Veli delegate's voice was barely audible. Many humans do, yes, not all but many. And the small orange pieces. Vegetables, plants. They are not poisoned. Hana paused with her chopsticks halfway to her mouth. Poisoned? No, they are seasoned with spices, flavoring. The Nor ambassador checked something on a small device. Their expression shifted to what Yuri had learned to recognize as horror. These spices, they contain capsaicin. This is a chemical that causes pain in nerve endings. Why would you add pain-causing chemicals to your food? Because it tastes good. No one at the table moved. Hana looked at her perfectly normal meal and slowly set down her chopsticks. She was beginning to understand. To these species, she was not just eating dinner. She was consuming the flesh of another creature, seasoned with painful toxins, using sharp metal tools. She was a predator, performing a predator's ritual rite in front of them. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "I did not mean to disturb you." The Torm delegate's voice was very small. They poison their food for pleasure, and they still survive. No one finished their meals that night, and in the darkness of the station, the council members lay awake, wondering what they had invited into their peaceful galaxy. The third day of the peace meeting began like the others. Tension filled the air. Delegates kept their distance. Progress was slow, but Hana refused to give up. She spoke carefully, listened closely, and worked to find common ground with beings who seemed to have nothing in common with humanity at all. By midday, she had made small victories. The Torm delegates had stopped flinching every time she moved. The Nor ambassador had even asked her a question directly. It was not much, but it was something. Trust was being built, one tiny step at a time. Then the alarms began to scream. Red lights flashed across the council chamber. A voice spoke through the station's communication system, calm but urgent. Hull breach detected in Residential Section 7. All personnel proceed to designated safe zones. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates rose from their seats and moved toward the exits. Their movements were orderly despite their fear. They had trained for this. They knew what to do. Go to the safe zones. Wait for the emergency crews. Stay calm. The humans did not go to the safe zones. T was moving before the alarm finished its first cycle. His body responded to danger the way it always had. He did not think about safety. He did not think about protocol. He thought about the people who might need help. Hana called out, "Where are you going?" "Section 7, someone might be hurt." Hana looked at Yuri. Yuri looked back. Without a word, they both started running after their captain. The corridors of Harmony Prime were designed for calm movement. Beings walked through them at measured paces, speaking softly, enjoying the peace of their civilized station. No one ran. No one shouted. Running and shouting were signs of primitive species, signs of creatures who had not evolved past their base instincts. 3 humans sprinted through these corridors like wolves through a garden. T led the way. His long legs carried him forward at a speed that made the aliens they passed gasp in shock. His feet pounded against the floor in a rhythm that sounded like thunder. Behind him, Hana and Yuri struggled to keep up, their breath coming in sharp bursts. They passed the Veli delegate in the hallway. The thin insect creature pressed against the wall, their compound eyes wide with terror. "Where are you going?" they called out. "The safe zones are the other direction." "People need help," Hana shouted back without slowing down. The concept did not make sense to the Veli. People were in danger, yes. That was why everyone was going to the safe zones. That was the logical response. That was the civilized response. Why would anyone run toward danger? Section 7 was filled with smoke when they arrived. A piece of debris from outside the station had punched through the hull, creating a breach that emergency systems were struggling to contain. Force fields flickered at the edges of the hole, holding back the void of space. But they were failing. Emergency crews had not yet arrived. The breach had happened too fast, in a section that was far from the main response centers. The beings who lived in this section were trapped. T assessed the situation in seconds. His training took over. Yuri, check for wounded. Hana, help evacuate anyone who can move. I'll handle the structural damage. They split up. Yuri moved through the smoke, her small frame ducking under fallen panels and climbing over debris. She found a Veli family huddled in a corner, their thin bodies shaking. "Come with me," she said. "I'll get you out." "We cannot move," the adult Veli said. "My child, she is trapped." Yuri looked down. A young Veli, barely larger than a human's hand, was pinned under a section of collapsed ceiling. The child was crying, a high, thin sound that cut through the noise of the alarms. "Stay calm," Yuri said. She crouched down and examined the debris. It was heavy, but not impossibly so. She braced herself and lifted. The Veli parent watched in amazement as this small human-raised material that should have required 3 adults to move. Yuri's muscles strained. Her face went red, but she did not stop. She held the debris up long enough for the parent to pull the child free. "Go," Yuri gasped. "Follow the lights to the safe zone. Go now." They went. Across the section, Hana was leading a group of Nor toward safety. Their mobile tanks were heavy and slow, designed for comfort rather than speed. One tank had been damaged in the breach, leaking water and power. "Leave me," the Nor inside said. "Save the others." "No." Hana grabbed the edge of the tank and began to push. The tank weighed more than she did. Her feet slipped on the smooth floor. Her arms burned with effort. She pushed anyway. "Why are you doing this?" the Nor asked. "You do not know me. I am nothing to you." "You are a person," Hana said through gritted teeth. "That is enough." At the breach itself, T worked with desperate speed. The force fields were failing. If they collapsed entirely, the entire section would decompress. Everyone still inside would die. He found the manual override for the emergency bulkhead. It was jammed, the mechanism damaged by the impact. T did not have tools. He did not have time to find tools. He had only his hands. He gripped the mechanism and pulled. Metal groaned. His muscles screamed in protest. Blood appeared on his palms where the sharp edges cut his skin. He did not stop. A Torm worker stood frozen nearby, watching in disbelief. "You will hurt yourself," the Torm said. "Wait for the repair crews. They will bring proper equipment." "No time," T grunted. "But your hands, you are bleeding." "I know." With a final heave, the mechanism gave way. The emergency bulkhead slammed down, sealing the breach. The force fields powered down, no longer needed. The immediate danger was past. T turned to the Torm worker. Blood dripped from his torn hands. His chest heaved with exhaustion. His eyes were calm. "Is anyone else trapped?" he asked. The Torm could not speak. They could only point toward a collapsed section further down the corridor. T nodded and started moving again. It took an hour to clear Section 7 completely. By the time the official emergency crews arrived, the 3 humans had already evacuated 46 beings, sealed 3 secondary breaches, and provided first aid to a dozen wounded. They were covered in dust and smoke. Their clothes were torn. Their bodies were pushed to their limits. They were still standing. The council reconvened that evening in a different chamber. The mood was not the same as before. The fear was still present, but it had changed. It had mixed with something else, something that looked almost like wonder. High Counselor Rem stood before the humans. The ancient Torm's crystal form was still cracked from stress, but there was a new light in their faceted eyes. "You ran toward the danger," Rem said. "Every species in the station ran away. Every species followed protocol and went to safety, but you ran toward the danger. Why?" Hana looked at T. T looked at Yuri. They were all exhausted. They were all in pain. but they all knew the answer. Because people needed help, Hana said simply. That is what humans do. But you could have died. Yes. You knew you could have died and you still went. Yes. Rem was silent for a long moment. The other council members watched and waited. Finally, Rem spoke again, their voice soft and wondering. We have spent 3,000 cycles building a union based on avoiding harm. We developed protocols and procedures. We created safe zones and emergency systems. We did everything we could to minimize risk and protect ourselves from danger. And it never occurred to us that there might be another way. Another way, Hana asked. Running toward the danger, facing it directly, using strength to protect instead of hiding in safety. Rem's form seemed to glow slightly brighter. We thought you were predators. We thought you were monsters. We did not understand that your strength could be used for good. T shifted uncomfortably. He was not used to being praised. We just did what anyone would do. No, Kel's voice came from near the door. The young Nor had been watching from a distance, but now they floated forward. No, Captain T, that is not what anyone would do. That is what humans do, and it is remarkable. Aveli stepped forward. Hana recognized them as the parent whose child Yuri had saved. You lifted material that should have crushed you. You bled for us. You risked death for strangers. A Nor delegate added their voice. You pushed my tank to safety when I told you to leave me. You refused to abandon someone you had never met. One by one, the beings who had been rescued came forward. They told their stories. They described what they had seen. They spoke of the 3 humans who had run toward danger when every instinct said to run away. By the end, the fear in the room had transformed completely. It was still there, in a way. The aliens were still aware that these humans were stronger, faster, and more resilient than any species they had ever encountered. But now they understood something else. The humans were not dangerous because they were predators. They were dangerous because they cared. They were dangerous because they would sacrifice themselves for others. They were dangerous because nothing, not injury, not exhaustion, not the threat of death itself, could stop them from helping those in need. And that kind of danger, the Council was beginning to realize, might be exactly what the Galactic Union needed. Hana stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by beings who had once fled from her smile. Now they looked at her with something close to hope. Tomorrow, she said, we continue the peace talks, but tonight I think we should rest, all of us. For the first time since the humans had arrived, no one argued. The final day of the peace meeting arrived with a strange new energy-filling harmony prime. The corridors that had emptied at the sight of humans now filled with curious faces. Beings who had once hidden behind doors now stood in the open, watching the 3 visitors pass. Some even raised their appendages in awkward attempts at human greetings. Hana walked between T and Yuri, her heart lighter than it had been in days. They were still frightening to these species. That would probably never fully change, but something had shifted. Fear was no longer the only emotion in the air. The council chamber was full when they entered. Every seat was occupied. Extra viewing platforms had been added to accommodate the observers who wanted to witness this final session. The whole station seemed to be watching. High Counselor Rem stood at the center, their crystalline form catching the light in ways that made them seem to glow from within. The cracks that had appeared from stress were still visible, but they looked different now. They looked like marks of growth rather than damage. Ambassador Hana Lee, Rem said formally, before we proceed with official business, the Council would like to hear your closing statement. Please share whatever you wish us to know about your species. Hana stepped forward. She had prepared remarks, careful words chosen to present humanity in the best possible light. Looking at the assembled beings now, she set those remarks aside. These people deserve the truth. Humanity is not a perfect species, she began. We have made terrible mistakes throughout our history. We have fought wars that killed millions. We have damaged our own planet. We have been cruel to each other in ways that shame us even now." The chamber was silent. This was not what they had expected to hear. For a long time, we did not know if we would survive ourselves. Our weapons grew more powerful while our wisdom stayed the same. We came close to destruction many times. Some days it felt like only luck kept us going. Hana paused, gathering her thoughts. But we did survive, not because we were strong, though we are strong, not because we were smart, though we try to be smart. We survived because something in our nature refuses to give up. When we fall down, we get up. When we fail, we try again. When everything seems lost, we find hope in the darkest places. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many beings as she could. "Yesterday, my colleagues and I ran toward danger. You find this strange. You ask why we would risk our lives for strangers. The truth is, we do not fully understand it ourselves. It is simply who we are. On Earth, we have a saying, 'No one is left behind.' It does not matter if we know you. It does not matter if we like you. It does not matter if helping you is dangerous or difficult or likely to fail. If you need help, we help. That is the deal we make with the universe." The Veli representative raised a thin arm. "But why? What do you gain from such behavior?" Hana smiled, carefully keeping her lips closed. "We gain each other. We gain the knowledge that we are not alone. We gain the strength that comes from facing danger together instead of hiding from it separately. We gain purpose." She took a deep breath. "We know we are frightening to you. We understand why. By your standards, we are impossibly durable, impossibly persistent, impossibly dangerous. We come from a world that should have killed us 1,000 times over. Instead, it made us who we are. But we did not come here to conquer. We did not come here to dominate. We came here because we looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there. We came here because we hoped that in all the vastness of space, we might find friends." Hana's voice grew soft. "We are offering you our hand in friendship. I know that gesture frightens you. I know that our way of showing connection looks like aggression to your eyes, but please try to see past the surface. Please try to see what we really mean. We mean we are here for you. We mean we will stand with you. We mean whatever comes, whatever dangers the universe sends our way, you will not face them alone." She stepped back. "That is all I have to say." The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then Kel, the young Nor who had been their first real connection on the station, floated forward. "May I speak?" Kel asked. Rem nodded. "You may." Kel turned to face the council. "When the humans arrived, I was assigned to assist them because I was considered expendable. A young aide, unimportant, easy to replace if something went wrong. The council expected the humans to be dangerous. They wanted someone they could afford to lose." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Kel continued despite them. "But the humans did not hurt me. They did not threaten me. They treated me with kindness and patience, even when I was clearly afraid of them. Captain T told me stories about Earth. Dr. Park explained human customs so I could understand them better. Ambassador Lee asked me questions about my life and actually listened to my answers." Kel's voice grew stronger. "And when the breach happened, they did not think of themselves. They did not wonder if saving us was worth the risk. They simply acted. They bled for us. They exhausted themselves for us. They showed me what true courage looks like." The young Nor turned to face the humans directly. "I am no longer afraid of you. I am inspired by you. And I think the galaxy needs more beings like you, not fewer." The silence that followed was different from before. It was thoughtful rather than tense. Beings exchanged glances, reconsidering everything they had believed about these strange visitors from the death world called Earth. Rem stepped forward. "The Council will now vote on the formal admission of humanity to the Galactic Union, all in favor." One by one, hands and appendages and crystalline formations rose into the air. The Veli, still nervous but willing, The Nor floating in their tanks with new respect in their eyes. The Torm, their ancient forms catching the light. Every species voted yes. Every single one. The vote is unanimous, Rem announced. Humanity is hereby admitted as the 13th member of the Galactic Union. Applause was not a universal concept, but the chamber filled with the sounds of celebration in a dozen different forms, clicking and humming and chiming and splashing. Hana felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them back, remembering that visible moisture from the eyes might mean something entirely different to these species. After the ceremony, as the delegates mingled and conversed, T found himself standing alone near a window. Outside, the stars spread across infinity like scattered diamonds. He had always loved space. It made him feel both small and infinite at the same time. A presence appeared beside him. It was Kel, floating quietly in their small tank. "Captain T," Kel said, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Will you come back? After you return to Earth, will you visit us again?" T considered the question. He thought about all the strangeness they had encountered, the fear they had caused, the misunderstandings that had nearly ruined everything. He thought about the moment when he had torn his hands open to save beings he had never met. He thought about the look in Kel's eyes right now. Hope, friendship, trust. "We will come back," he said. "Promise." T looked at the young Nor. Then slowly, deliberately, he extended his hand. His damaged hand, wrapped in bandages from the emergency, still sore but healing. Kel stared at the offered hand for a long moment. This gesture, this human greeting that had terrified so many, now held a different meaning. It was an offer of connection, a bridge between worlds. Slowly, carefully, Kel extended a small appendage from their tank. For the first time in Nor history, one of their kind reached out and accepted a human's grasp. "Promise," T said. Across the chamber, Hana watched this moment unfold. She watched her stoic captain, the soldier who rarely smiled, make a friend who could not possibly be more different from him. She watched two species, separated by biology and history and countless light years of space, find common ground. Maybe this was what it meant to be human, not the strength or the endurance or the persistence, though those things mattered. Maybe it was the ability to reach out across impossible distances and say, "I see you. I understand you. Let us be friends." Dr. Yuri appeared at Hana's side. "Beautiful, is it not?" Yuri said softly. "Yes," Hana agreed. "It really is." The UNS Horizon departed Harmony Prime the next morning. As the ship pulled away from the station, the three humans looked back at what they were leaving behind. The silver flower shape of Harmony Prime glittered in the starlight, more beautiful than ever. "Do you think we did well?" Yuri asked. "I think we did our best," Hana replied. "That is all anyone can do." T guided the ship into the departure lane. This time he followed the proper approach path. There was no need to show off anymore. The galaxy knew who they were now. The galaxy knew what they could do. Behind them, 12 species watched the human ship disappear into the stars. They were still afraid in some ways. The humans were still terrifying. That would probably never change. But now they understood something else. The most dangerous species in the galaxy was also the most loyal. The most fierce was also the most kind. The Death World predators who showed their teeth in greeting were also the ones who would bleed and sacrifice and never give up, not for themselves, but for others. The Galactic Union had existed for 3,000 cycles. It had known peace and stability and careful, measured growth. Now it had something new. Now it had humans. And the galaxy would never be the same. In the council chamber, young Kel floated near the observation window, watching the last traces of the horizon fade into the distance. The promise echoed in their mind. A human promise, given with blood-stained hands and steady eyes. They would come back. Kel believed it. For the first time in their short life, they had met beings who ran toward danger instead of away from it. beings who would keep their word no matter what. Kel turned away from the window and floated back toward their duties. There was much work to do, new protocols to develop, new understanding to build. The integration of humanity into the Galactic Union would not be easy. There would be more misunderstandings, more fear, more moments of tension. But it would be worth it, Kel knew that now. Because somewhere out there, traveling through the endless dark between stars, 3 humans were already planning their return. 3 ambassadors of a species that should have been impossible. 3 friends. And they had promised to come back.